My name is Matthew Sturkey with Stone Mill Log and Timber Homes. I really appreciate you spending your time today. Feel free during the presentation, if you need to get up and do, take care of some errands or whatever, that's fine too. This presentation will be recorded. We're going to do a question and answer at the end, and then anybody who wants to go back and watch the presentation will be able to do so after the fact. We'll send out a link probably Monday or Tuesday with the presentation for everybody to go back and look at it, or for those who couldn't make it, who want to go back and listen to the presentation. So welcome everyone. As I said, my name is Matthew Sturkey. I have been with Stone Mill Log and Timber Homes since 1997. We are family owned and operated since 1974. We're 48 years in business, second generation family owned and operated. And I tell you that I've been here since 97, just to say that I've seen a lot. In that 25 years, I've seen a lot. I've worked with a lot of clients on developing their plans and going through this design and engineering process and going through construction with them. So I've seen a lot of different things happen. I've seen a lot of different plans. I've worked with a lot of different clients on what their needs and wants are, and it can be very daunting sometimes. And so a couple of goals that we have for today with this presentation are, one, to help you figure out where to get started. It can be overwhelming, and you can kind of get into this almost analysis paralysis where you just get locked in trying to figure out how to design the perfect plan, and you just don't get anywhere. And if that is you, and I just described what you're going through, hopefully this presentation will be able to help. And then we want to take a little deeper dive into the design and engineering phase so that you know what the steps are and you know how to get started and get into this part of the process. I think, and just in the 25 years that I've been doing this part of the process is supposed to be fun and enjoyable, but it's also one of, if not the most important, in my opinion. You cannot spend enough time, and nor can you spend too much time going through the design process. It's really important that you do this early and often, and you start early in the process to give yourself plenty of time to develop the plan that is right for you. I won't say the perfect plan, because I don't think there is such a thing as a perfect plan. I've worked with hundreds of homeowners that have designed and built custom homes. And at the end of the day, there's always something, without a doubt, that you go, oh, I wish I'd done that. My wife and I built our home in 2003. We have 4 kids. And there's always something we say, oh, I wish we had done this. Wish we had maybe designed and built that, a little bigger utility room. So you're never going to design, I don't think you'll ever design the perfect plan, but we want to make sure that you spend enough time developing the ideal plan for you and your family, and what's right for you and your family might be different for somebody else and somebody else's situation. So we're going to take a deep dive into this process. And I can't underscore how important this part of the process is. The more we can get developed on the front end accurately, thoroughly, the more enjoyable this process will be down the road when you get into construction. You're not trying to figure things out at the 11th hour. So hopefully that's a good little preview as to, what we're going to do today with the presentation. So we're going to jump in. We're going to spend about the next 30 minutes or so going through the presentation, and then we'll leave the last 15 or 20 minutes or so for question and answer. So how do you get started in this design and engineering process? What are the things that you want to try to tackle first? And getting out of that whole analysis paralysis where, I've had clients before that have come and said, I just can't figure out how to design this. Well, don't try to figure out your design before you get into design. Let it develop, be patient with it, and it is something that's very fluid. So one of the first things that I typically will tell a prospective client that you want to do is, if you haven't already, make sure you develop a good solid budget goal. That is so important. I kind of think about, if you're going out to look at a pre-existing home and you're meeting with a real estate agent, and you want that real estate agent to show you a dozen different homes. Well, if you don't have a budget goal, let's say that your budget goal is $500,000. You're not going to go out and look at $1 million+ homes if your budget goal is $500,000. So it's extremely important to develop a solid budget so that you know kind of what you're designing and engineering to. So you can, in order to develop a budget, you can go and get pre-qualified. It's basically sitting down with your lending institution and giving them some debt to income ratio information and getting a better feel for what you can comfortably afford to spend. This is not going to give you an idea of what you can afford. It's what you can afford to spend, because you may be able to afford more, but you may not want to spend it. So it's important that you develop that solid budget goal. If you are not going to finance, then I would meet with your financial advisor and say, okay, what can we comfortably afford to put into this investment? And or you may have equity in your current home and you've got a certain number in mind that you're going to be able to sell that for, and what you're going to make off the sale of that house is going to be going into this new home. So however you derive that number and that budget goal is extremely important to know for you as well as for us. We are going to try to design and specify materials that are going to get close to that budget goal so that we're not designing a home that is twice as big as it needs to be. So if you've got a budget goal of $500,000, we're not going to go out there and design more square footage than we think you can comfortably afford to fit within that budget goal. So I can't stress how important starting off on the right foot is with developing a budget goal and making sure that you get a good solid number that you can convey. And when I talk about budget goals, I'm talking about specifically for the building of the project. If you're one of those that doesn't have property yet, and you're going to need to buy a piece of land and you're going to need to make improvements to that property, make sure you pull those numbers out of your budget goals so that you know what is left to go into the design of the home and towards the budget goal of that home. So really important to establish that goal. And then the next is to develop just a list of needs and wants. This is so critical. Try to figure out what your deal breakers are, what things you can't live without. You know, use your current home and the things that you love about your current home to develop a list of the things that you want to see into your new home. Make a list of the things that you don't like about your current home that you want to stay away from in your new home, so that you can start developing a master list of deal breakers. You know, for some of our clients, those deal breakers may be a fireplace, a wood burning fireplace, you know, which is a pretty big investment. And we get a lot of times clients will say, well, that's always what I've wanted in this new forever home that I'm building, is this wood burning masonry fireplace. That may be a deal breaker. That's probably something that would qualify as a want, not a need. But if that's something that you can't live without, make sure it goes on that list, because it's essential that you get in try to incorporate those things that you really want that are deal breakers into your home. So make a list of even each room, go through and develop a schedule, what I call a material schedule, where you make a list of each room in the house and what you want the finishes to be in the floors or on the walls or in the ceilings of each of those rooms, so that you can clearly convey that to the designer and to the design build firm that you end up working with. We are a design build firm, so for our clients, they come to us with this information, and we're developing a full for construction set of drawings and doing an engineered stamp set of plans. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. We're just trying to talk about how to get started right now. And if you're one of those that likes to go online and you like to use online resources and you like to use photo albums and Pinterest, which is a great space to be able to create a board with all the images of the features that you love, that you want to see in your home. That is great information for us to share. We'll have people that will come in with photo albums or big folders full of pictures that they've cut out of magazines. So those are all good, helpful ways to where you're not having to try to figure out how to draw this on paper, but you're trying to make a list of all the things that you can convey to the designer and to us to develop that plan that's ideal for you. And then the next thing is really think about the future. I'll take, my family situation. When we built our home in 2003, we had a completely unfinished basement. We, at the time, had 2 kids. We had thought that at one point in time, we were going to completely finish our basement as our family started getting older and our older kids started getting older and started leaving the house and going off to college. Then that finished basement became less of an issue. Now we're, about 6-7 years away from being empty nesters. And so that lower level is less necessary for us to finish until we start maybe having grandkids. And now we're going to need that overflow space and a place for them to have a rec room or a game room to go and play and get out of the way, of the main living space. So whatever your situation is, whether it's a growing family or whether you're an empty nester, retiree, and you have got kids and grandkids that you want to entertain, down the road, be thinking about how you're going to live in that home 5, 10, 15, 20 years into the future, because the homes that we're building are typically forever homes. They're not temporary dwellings that you live in for a few years and then turn around and resell. We don't typically see a lot of our homeowners resell. Also be thinking about aging in place. And as we get older and our knees and hips get a little bit weaker, be thinking about living space and where you're going to live in the home. For my wife and I, we had lived prior to our current home. We had lived in a house with the master suite upstairs, and we knew that our next home and our forever home, which is the one we're in, we were going to live off the main floor. And that is such a good decision because now I don't have to navigate stairs, laundry rooms on the main floor. Everything's right there off the main. And so I usually really hardly ever have to go upstairs or downstairs, in my home. So be thinking about that as we're getting older and as we're aging in place. And then, think about maintenance items. We have certain presentations that we've done in the past about how to design for reducing long-term maintenance, but that is something to keep in mind as you design this home. Overhangs, covered porches, solar orientation, different finishes in those areas that are above the roof lines that are more vulnerable to the sunlight. Be thinking about different finishes. So don't just think about layout and space. Be thinking about some of the functional items that go into the home and how you're going to be maintaining that home over time. So hopefully everybody is keeping up with me. The next item to really think about is to design to the site. I get a lot of clients that come in and they've got this plan picked out. This is the one they want. They want the cottonwood and they don't have a piece of property yet. So one of the things that I would caution those who don't have property yet is don't get bogged down or stuck on a particular plan. If you are in love with a one-level, sprawling, one-level, very large footprint for the main floor, and you don't own a piece of property, you may find a piece of property that's more suited to build up, not out, and that floor plan that you love may not be the best fit for that particular property. So make sure that you're selecting a plan or designing a plan specifically to that site, more importantly, to the topography of the site. If you've got some slope, it's really a good idea to design something that's more vertical, something that's built up, not out, because that will help to control cost. when it comes to foundation work and site prep and excavation cost and grading and retaining walls. Really important that you design specifically to the site. So if you're, if you love that cottonwood design, but you've got a moderate to steep slope, that may not be the best design for that particular site. So design to the slope is really the ideal situation. And also designing to the view. If you take a look at this particular view off of this particular home, this is a rear view. So all of your view side living spaces and kitchen and master bedroom would all want to take advantage of this rear side view. Make sure that, whatever rooms from the home that you want to take advantage of that view can do so. So plans that we have, like the Elk River 2 or the Elk River or the Rockdale, are really set up for view side properties where the views in the back and everything that, all the rooms that you're going to be spending the majority of your time, like the living room and the master bedroom and the kitchen, and some of those spaces are all designed specifically for that view side. And then be thinking about shade and solar orientation, and be thinking about how that house is going to sit on the property and where the sun is going to come up in the morning and where it's going to set in the afternoon, and where that sun's going to set and how that's going to affect the amount of sunlight coming into that living room. I have seen clients that have designed and set window walls directly southwest facing, and they get a lot of sunlight in the afternoon, and it's really hot in those living rooms in that scenario, and they have to do shades or blinds in order to keep that heat down from that room. So be thinking about sunlight and where it's coming up. And if you're a morning person and you like to get up early, great. Morning sunrise. If you're a sleeper and you don't want that sun waking you up in the morning, be thinking about how that's going to be affected by the design and how it's going to be affected by the layout of that design on the property. And then the biggest thing, and it's certainly last but not least, and that is just keep it simple. This is something that you don't really have to try to figure out on your own. You don't have to design this plan on your own before you get started. That's what you leave the experts like us and architects or designers to do, to help you figure out these things along the way. So, don't try to get bogged down in drawing everything yourself. Certainly it doesn't hurt if you want to doodle and you want to get a piece of graph paper and sketch something out that is laid out the way you want it to be, or that has certain features or certain spaces laid out the way that you want them to be. But don't feel like you got to figure everything out, because that will be something that gets developed in time as we go through the design process to develop this ideal plan for you. And if custom design is not your thing, and you want to pick a standard, that's one of the reasons that we have those 40 plus standard plans. You can modify those. Really always tell prospective clients that standard plans are just a starting point. There, I would never advise somebody that they will find a standard plan that's going to have everything that they need. If you do, great, that's a bonus. But the majority of the time, you will have to make modifications to a standard, or you will have to customize that. I can tell you that in my 25 years of doing this and working with hundreds of clients, I've had one that has picked a standard plan and we've made no changes to it. Even those who pick a standard plan and have some minor modifications, we're always going to be redesigning that plan with the finishes that you want to see in it, the types of roofing choices that you want, the siding options that you want for the gables and dormers, the finishes that you want to see on the foundation, and in the gables and dormers. So there's always going to be a level of change to the plan that occurs to accommodate site elevations or to accommodate the type of foundation that's going to be designed for the house, whether it's a basement or a crawl space or a slab. So don't feel like you're going to pick this standard plan and it's going to be as is, and you're not going to have to make any adjustments to it. So that's why I just say keep it simple. If you can't design something, and sketch something out yourself, then just find a plan that works for you, and feel free to, pick a plan that we have, and we can modify that plan to accommodate whatever changes and needs and wants you have. A few more things, think about, functionality and form. Think about how you're going to live in that space. It's important that you take what you like about your current home and some of the room sizes for your current home and design that into your new home. So if you've got a master suite currently that is, 18 by 20, and that's the right size for you, make sure that you measure those rooms and you make a note of that so that that gets incorporated into the new design. Figure out how you're going to be using that space and how your furniture is going to be laid out. Think about how those spaces are going to be incorporated in for, flow when you walk in, and then when you, enter the home and navigate, through that home and through that space, and making sure that you try to eliminate as many dead spaces, as possible. So consider that flow. It's always a good idea. And they actually sell these kits, these furniture kits. So if you are taking your floor plan that is developed, let's say we get a preliminary plan and you want to lay out all your furniture, you can buy these furniture kits that you can actually overlay onto the plans that are all to scale. And it's really helpful to get a feel for how your furniture is going to sit in the house. And, sometimes we'll design for clients around a piece of furniture, a piece of kind of an heirloom or something that's been in the family for a few generations. So be thinking about the furniture that you're going to be taking with you and how that's going to fit into the wall. And is there going to be enough wall space there? A lot of times when you have a lot of windows, you limit wall space there, and you realize now, oh my gosh, I've put so many windows in, I don't have a place for a buffet, or I don't have a place for a pie safe or something like that. So be thinking about how your furniture is going to fit into the equation. And then you can never design too much storage space. Be thinking about storage and using maybe some of the dead spaces in the upper level to close those in and have good storage areas there. And if you don't have those dead spaces in an upper floor, where are you going to incorporate storage? Is it going to be in that lower level? And is that lower level going to be maybe unfinished to accommodate for some extra overflow storage space, along the way? And then another one, in addition to keeping it simple, be fluid with this process. Be prepared to go back to the drawing board. That's the reason I always say start early, because you want to be able to spend time. We'll talk about this in just a minute when we kind of take a deep dive into the process. But when you're developing a set of preliminary plans, that's kind of a conceptual plan for estimating purposes. And it's a good idea to go out there and start getting those estimates on the front end so that you have time and that you can go back along the way to the drawing board if you need to value engineer. Value engineer is just a fancy term for cutting cost. So if we've got a preliminary plan and one of our clients goes out and gets a turnkey estimate, and let's say that turnkey estimate is 10% over their budget goal, then we need to have time to go back to the drawing board to value engineer, to cut some cost, to redesign the plan, to get that plan back in line with the budget goal that they have. So give yourself some time to do that. If you start too late in the process, and you don't have enough time to do that, then you're going to be kind of under the gun at that point to, kind of move forward. And you don't want to do that. You want to make sure everything is kind of solidified on the front end before you start getting deeper into the plan process. And then, as always, when help is needed, go out there and seek out the professionals. As I said, we're a design build firm, so we're going to develop a for-construction set of drawings, and we're going to do an engineered stamp set of plans so that your contractor can go out, or so that you can go out, if you're serving as an owner builder, can go out and pull permits with our engineered stamp drawing. But even during our process, where we're not going to develop electrical and mechanical and plumbing plans. So if you have certain needs for lighting plans and you want to go out there and seek the advice of an interior designer or a lighting specialist, they can show you, where artificial lighting should be and chandeliers should be, and where light kits should be, and ceiling fans, and where you should have uplights and where you should have wall sconces. There are certain formulas for how much artificial light that you'll have in addition to your natural light. Or if you want to really hone in on the kitchen and bath design and your countertop and cabinetry design, there are companies like Kitchen Sales here locally where they specialize in the design solely of the kitchen and bath spaces and can help you with, cabinetry and countertop space and how that's all going to be used and where your storage should be and side cupboards should be. So don't feel afraid to go out and seek the advice of the professionals. Landscaping is a huge one. Drainage plans and landscaping plans, seek out the help and the advice from professionals there as well. Because when it comes to landscaping, that's one of those things that's kind of open-ended where you could go crazy on landscaping. So hopefully this really helps you kind of get started and helps you get some tips on where to start, that you don't have to figure this out on your own. This is something that is fluid, that will develop over time through this process. So it's good when you get started in the process to keep it simple, make a list of the different things that you want in your home, have a good solid budget goal in place, think about how you're going to use that space, make a list of all those needs and wants so that when you do start this process, you can convey all these things to the design build firm or to your designer so that they can get started with you and go through that process. And when you get into that design phase, as we kind of take a deeper dive into, what that looks like, the first thing that you want to really accomplish is developing a conceptual drawing, what we call a preliminary plan, so that you can go out and do estimating. Don't develop a full-blown set of plans for construction with all your structural drawings finalized and everything stamped and engineered before you have a number in place, because you might have to adjust along the way. You might have to go back to the drawing board. You might have to value engineer. You might have to redesign to accommodate some of those changes, to cut some of those costs, to get everything back in line, with your budget goals. So that's the first step in this deep dive to engineering and design, and that is develop that preliminary set of plans. We have a preliminary plan phase that is more conceptual, where we're developing floor plans and elevations and foundation plan so that you can go out there and we'll give you our good faith estimate on the log and timber portion. And then you go out to your contractor and you get a solid, accurate turnkey estimate based on what finishes have been selected and specified on the plans, what foundation type has been drawn and what foundation finish, et cetera, so that you can get a good, solid, what we call a good faith estimate from your general contractor, so you can get a picture of where you are from a budget standpoint. If you are at that point, if you are within budget in your first bid, great. Then you've got the ability to move forward. If you're not, which is most of the time what happens with clients, because we typically will always try to design in on the front end everything that we want and that we need, not knowing if it's going to fit or not. But at that point, be prepared, be fluid, be flexible, and be patient, because be prepared at that point if you are over budget. Let's say you're 10% over budget and you've got to go back and do some value engineering, and you've got to sit down with the designer or with us to make a list of cost-cutting items so that you can then go back to the preliminary plan, get something redeveloped in the design so that you can get an updated good faith estimate to get back within budget. Make sure you give yourself the time to do that. So that's such a critical step, and it gets overlooked sometimes because people don't have the time and they've waited till the last minute to go through this process, and they feel like their backs are against the wall a little bit to get started and move forward. Give yourself plenty of time to do that, because that's a critical step in the process to being able to go back and cut some costs along the way, redesign the plan to account for those cost-cutting measures, and then give yourself time to get that updated good faith estimate from your general contractor before you really start getting committed to the project. And that really is the next phase. So once you've got this preliminary plan designed and everything fits within the budget goal that you have, and you've gotten your good faith estimate in hand, and it's in line with budget goal, now you're ready at that point to really start committing to the project and start committing to developing a for-construction set of plans so that you can get to the permitting phase in the project. So that commitment phase, once we've developed preliminary drawings, the commitment phase is a kind of another step to take this plan into what we call final for construction plans. The first step that we do is what we call check set. And check set is where we're going to take the prelims and we're going to add all the structural drawings. We're going to incorporate the subfloor plans, the final foundation plan. We're going to incorporate section drawings, floor framing plans, second floor framing plans, roof framing plans, to incorporate all these structural drawings that go along with kind of the architectural drawings of the plans. And then once the client has reviewed those and the contractor has reviewed those, and it's a really good idea at that point in the check set for the contractor to send those out to his electrician and plumbers and mechanical contractors, so that if those guys have any changes, or let's say your mechanical contractor needs a chase, for an air return to be in a certain location, we can accommodate and make adjustments to that before we go into this, what we call final not for construction plan phase. The final not for construction is where we're ultimately sending that final set of plans out to the general contractor and to the homeowner for their final review. And there are no more cosmetic or architectural changes at that particular time, because when we release those drawings to our structural engineer, there are no changes allowed after we release those plans to the structural engineer. He is literally going to take those drawings. He is going to do all the analysis for the structure, where it's being built, the code that's being required for the location that it's being built in. And then he is going to review, analyze, and stamp that plan in its entirety as is, and then send that out to us for sending to the client for you guys to, at that point, go in and pull permits with that drawing. So it's really important to make sure that all the kind of cosmetic changes are out of the way, the architectural changes, layout changes are out of the way. We don't want to do those after the plans have been engineered, because there are times during engineering when we release those to our structural engineer. He'll submit those back with what we call plan red lines or engineering red lines. And that is things that he has found along the way. Let's say we've got a ridge beam that's initially spec'd out as an 8x14, and it needs to go to an 8x16. just for a load calculation or for us to accommodate a clear span. So at that point, the plan red lines would come to us, and then we would make any changes that have been requested from the engineer, and then we'll make our cost changes as well on our proposals to accommodate any changes in some of the structural timbers or any of the log components that we'll be providing. Same thing holds true for, maybe a general contractor. Let's say the engineer comes back and a spot footing needs to be a little bigger than what was originally shown. Those things would have to get adjusted in that final pricing before we go to a final for construction engineered set and before you pull permits for your building project. So after they come out of engineering, after they've gotten stamped for whatever the location that you're going to be building in. So if you're building in North Carolina or Colorado or Florida, they're going to have that state's engineered seal on that, so that you can walk into the codes department and hand the plans to them and issue a request for a permit. And then you've got a permittable set of plans in your hand for submitting to your codes department. So that's the final really step in the design and engineering phase. Once you get permits in hand, now you're ready to cut the general contractor loose to start breaking ground and to start construction. And that's kind of a deep dive into that phase. So just some kind of closing remarks, and try not to be too redundant on these, but these were, some of the things that I just felt like what you should take away, from this presentation. And the first one being just to plan ahead and take your time through this process. Don't rush through it. Be patient with it. If you wait till the last minute and if you procrastinate, you are going to be frustrated with this whole process. And that's not what we want our clients to be when it comes to design and that engineering phase. We want you to have plenty of time to review the plans that we send out for you, because your approval of those is your acknowledgement that you want us to proceed forward to the next phase. So give yourself plenty of time and be patient through this process. Always do it right the first time. And when you can spend the time that's needed on the front end and not be rushed through the process, you can certainly set yourself up to doing it right the first time, as opposed to having to change something down the road. And then I have had clients try to start foundation work and start construction before they got an engineered stamp set of plans back. And I'm taking this opportunity to say that is not a good idea. The engineers will consistently make changes to footing sizes and to beam sizes or subfloor. We just had a plan recently that just came back in red line. Now we had a 3-ply girder got changed to a 5-ply. So be thinking about some of those things that could change during the engineering analysis and how that may be affecting you in that final plan. So don't try to build something before your plans are engineered. And then last and certainly not least, as I've said several times, be flexible through the process. You want to enjoy this process. You want it to be fun. You want it to be something that is not stressful. And if you're flexible and patient with this, and you know that this process is going to be fluid, then I think you'll set yourself up for a much more enjoyable experience and something that you'll enjoy as you go through it, and not something that's going to be stressful and that you just want to get away from. So that is it for today. I know that is a lot of information that we've unpacked in 45 minutes. We're going to open the floor at this time for questions and answers. And no questions are off limits at this point. Feel free to put those questions in the chat, and Dawn will ask those as they come up, and I'll try to answer those as best I can. If I don't get to everybody's questions, feel free to reach out to your sales consultant. They can help you as well answer those questions, or don't hesitate to ever reach out to me as well through this process. So thank you guys for spending the time to listen to me today, and hopefully it's been helpful.
Thanks, Matthew. All right. Does anyone have any questions? I know that was a lot of information. One thing I can think of, Matthew, is maybe just pointing out, who hires the engineer? How does that, how does that transition go from us to the engineer? I know sometimes people ask that, do they have to go find their own engineer? So maybe that's a good question to start with.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So when clients get into our commitment phase, the engineering is all handled by us in-house. So we do all the design and engineering in-house. And that is something that we procure the engineer. We have a third-party engineer that we've been working with for years. He's licensed in all 48 domestic states. So you don't have to go out and find your own engineer to, and it's actually preferred for you not to go out and find your own engineer, because our engineer is experienced in log and timber frame construction. He knows about all of our connections and how we do things and how we tie things together. You don't want an engineer to have to figure it out for the first time, because sometimes that can mean they might over-engineer something, like engineers always do, but they may grossly over-engineer it because they're not familiar with it. So having an engineer like ours that understands this process, understands this type of construction, and knows what we do and how we make our connections, that's the reason we do all the engineering. And we also do all the engineering internally, so that we can control that process, and so we can provide you as a deliverable with an engineered stamped set of drawings that you and your contractor can go out and pull permits with. We're not providing an architectural set of plans. We're doing a for construction set of drawings that are engineered and stamped. So if you are going to need like electrical, plumbing, and mechanical plans, a lot of times our clients will have those trades do those particular drawings, or you might have to go out and seek out a separate party to do those particular drawings, but it typically never comes up. And so that's a great question. The engineering is done through us. When going back to that process in this preliminary plan phase, we don't do engineering during this step. This step is for you to develop conceptual drawings for estimating and get a good, solid, good faith estimate in hands before you get too far down into this process. So it's not until you get into what we call this commitment phase that we do all the structural drawings, final for construction, and then submit them over, turn them over to our structural engineer for his review, analysis, and stamping of the plans.
Okay, Matthew, so we've got a question. I know you had mentioned about, general contractors. And so we have a question of, do we have a general contractor here at Stone Mill? And then another question is, how do we find a general contractor in our region who's experienced with log or timber frame?
Yeah, so great question. So, Stone Mill Log and Timber Homes is a subcontractor design build firm for all the unique log and timber frame components. So we take care of the design, the engineering, the fabrication, the delivery, and the construction of the log and timber components. And we work in partnership with general contractors around the country who will do basically the foundation work per our engineer drawing, and then all the finish work. So if we're going into Western North Carolina, you want to hire a licensed general contractor in Western North Carolina who's going to do all the conventional work that we don't do, and partner with us while we do all the unique log and timber work. So how that works is the general contractor takes our engineered stamp plans, pulls a permit, gets the site ready, gets a foundation in place, gets subfloor and porch decks in place, and then we come in as a sub to he or she, and to the homeowner, and do all the unique log and timber work, get the structure erected and dried in, and then we turn it back over to the GC. So how do you find a general contractor in your region of the country? Well, you can start by the Home Builders Association. You can start by the Chamber of Commerce. You can start by going down to the reputable local building supplies and asking, who the reputable contractors are. You don't have to hire a licensed general contractor that's built a log home before. You want to hire somebody that's experienced, that is knowledgeable. I think I may be. Am I good, Dawn? Dawn, am I good?
Yep, you're good. I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Don't feel like you've got to hire a general contractor that has log home experience. We will educate them on our timber for reputable with, and tip Tuesdays that we've done that you can find on our website or on our YouTube channel about how to find a general contractor. We've done lunch and learns about budgeting and about selecting your dream team. So go back through some of those presentations if you want to kind of take a deeper dive into finding a GC. If you find a general contractor that's got log home experience, great, that's an added bonus, but don't feel like it's a prerequisite to making a selection. And then if the other thing too is if you're building in an area that we've got a lot of, then we may have some names of some general contractors that our homeowners have used that we can refer to you, or that we can refer, and they can say, yeah, great, and I loved working with them. And they were really honest, and they were really fair, and really on time, and give you a good recommendation. Or they may say, yeah, we use so-and-so, and diligence with that too. Do your homework, and Dawn, are you out there? I
Okay.
keep thinking we're freezing up.
Yeah. Hey, Matthew, hang on a second. I think we've got a little bit of lag. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. It was just
I can
freezing
hear
up for a
you.
minute. I was going to give it a second, see if the internet would speed up a little. We're having some connection problems here at the office, guys, so just bear with us for a second.
But that's a great question.
Okay. Can everyone hear us?
You're freezing.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. I think our internet has slowed down. I just got a warning saying our internet connection was unstable. Okay, let's see. Just gonna give it a second to see if it would come back. Okay, Matthew, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I think we're okay now. Let's see if we can
Oh.
continue on. We're almost to the end. We have a couple more questions.
I can, yep.
Okay. All right, so we have a question. I did put the video link for a past lunch and learn that we did on how to find a general contractor. I know that was when we did, I think, last year. We have a question about what is a time frame that's realistic from start to breaking ground, as far as the planning and getting all this done.
Yeah, that's a great question, because in this particular climate, everything seems to take longer just because, there's a lot of volume right now, and, our designers and other subcontractors and vendors are experiencing higher volumes than they've experienced in a long time. So everybody is being kind of pushed to the max, more so than they have in a long time. So I always say, start early. Typically say, start this whole design and engineering process 18 to 24 months before you want to be in your home. That's giving yourself about 12 months for the construction phase, and it's giving yourself 6 to 12 months for the design and engineering phase. You're doing good faith estimating, you're doing value engineering, and sometimes you're doing redesign to have to get off enough time. So it's a reasonable, great. That just gives you only that much more time to go through this process and get everything developed the way that you want it, and make adjustments as needed, and value engineer and redesign as needed, without having to be under the gun and without having to stress.
Okay, can you hear me, Matthew?
I can't hear you. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sorry guys for our internet connection troubles.
Okay, I'm trying to see if we can, I mean, our internet is just, it is like not really connecting, so I'm not sure if we're gonna have to cut this off, Matthew, because I don't know if anybody can hear us.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Are we freezing up right now, or can you hear us okay?
Did
Dawn?
we get,
Yeah, I think we're frozen.
Y'all,
Yeah,
you're
I can hear
freezing,
you, but I don't think you
breaking
can hear
up
me.
on,
yeah, so can you hear me okay, Dawn?
Yeah, but it's breaking up.
Let's do this. Any additional questions, we can reach out direct, or
Yeah.
we can just shoot an email back. And if we got through the presentation, that's better than anything. Any additional questions can get, answered, down the road or as follow-up. And, before we lose connectivity, just want to say thanks again to everybody who joined us. Hopefully this was helpful to you in getting started. Please let us know how we can help you get started and get this thing for your designs. Thank you for your time today, and please send in any additional questions that didn't get answered.